Welcome back, guys. In this video we're going to be drafting the pattern of this beautiful bustier with deep yoke. So guys, I've gone ahead to take all my essential measurements. I marked out the start line, my chest line, my bust point, my under bust point, and my waistline. So from my waistline, I'm going to be going down by 6 inches because we are drafting a half cut with backs. So for the backs, we're going to be taking 6 inches. You can go as far as 7 inches, 5 inches, whatever you want, right? So I just took 6 inches from my waistline downwards and I marked it. So I'm going to be adding half of an inch as seam allowance. So I'm just adding half of an inch there as seam allowance. I'll be coming over to my start line now and I'll be taking my shoulder measurement divided by 2. So my shoulder measurement is 16 divided by 2 is 8. So I'll be marking 8 inches there and I'll be taking the same 8 inches at my chest line. So I'll just go ahead and connect this into a straight line. So guys, I'll go over to my chest line and I'll be marking my bust measurement divided by 4. So I'll divide my bust measurement by 4. Whatever I have, I'll mark it at my chest line. So under my armhole line, right, I'm going to be going up from my chest line. I'll be going up by 2.5 inches. Then I'll make a mark. From that 2.5 inches mark I made, I'll be going in by 0.7 inch. Then I'll just connect with a slanted line to meet my shoulder point. Then I'm going to connect with my curve line to meet my bust measurement points. So my bust measurement divided by 4 that I marked, right, I'll just connect it to meet that point. At my shoulder point, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch. Then I'll be taking the width of my neck at 3.5 inches. Then I'll just connect the points together. Going back to my bust point, I'm going to be taking my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 plus half inch. So my nipple to nipple measurement is 8 divided by 2 is 4 plus half inch, 4.5. I'm going to be taking 4.5 at my bust points, my under bust points, my waistline, my back's measurement, and my chest line. So I'm just taking a straight 4.5 inches. Then I'll just connect all these points together. At my under bust line, right, I'm going to be taking 1 inch towards my center front and 1.5 inch towards my side. So I took 1 inch towards my center and 1.5 inch towards my side. This is because we are working with a big bust. So I'm going to be repeating the same measurements at my waistline and at my back line, 1.5 inches towards the side and 1 inch towards the center. Then I'm just going to connect all these points together. So at my bust point line, I'll be going up by half of an inch and coming down by half of an inch. I'll just make a mark there. Then I'll go ahead and measure whatever I have from my bust point to my under bust. So what I have is 3.5 inches. So I'll place that 3.5 inches from my bust point upwards and mark it. Then I'm going to add extra half of an inch. You can go ahead and add 1 inch, or you can go ahead and mark it at the exact point. It depends on how reviewing you want it to be, right? So I'll just go ahead and connect it to meet my straight line. So I'll just go ahead and use my curve ruler to connect my bust curve. So from my under bust, I'll connect it to meet the half inch below my bust point. I'll just go ahead and rule out that line very well so that you see it. So towards my side, I'll be taking 1.5 inches, and towards my center, I took half of an inch. So I'm going to connect all these points to meet the half of an inch mark above the bust point. So that half of an inch mark above the bust point that we made, I'm just going to connect all these points to meet it. So for the depth of our yoke, I'm going to be going up from my under bust. I'll go up by 2 inches and make a mark. Then from my dart leg, I'm just going to connect with a curved line to meet that 2 inches mark that I just made. So I'm just going in with my pencil first of all, so that I'll be able to erase in case I don't like the shape of the curve. So after making sure and drawing out the curve and making sure it is what I want, I'm going to go ahead and use my marker to mark it out so that you guys will be able to see the curve that I made. So our yoke is already forming. I'll just go over now and take the depth of my neck. So the depth of my neck, I'll take it at 4 inches, and I'm just going to connect it like that. I wanted the yoke deeper, so from my under bust I went up by 1 inch instead of that initial 2 inches that I marked. So I just went up by 1 inch from my under bust, then I just blended it to meet the curve. So I'm going to be taking my body measurements now. So for coming to my chest line, you can see that I have some dart intake there. So I'm just going to measure what I have there and replace it. So I have a total of 0.75 inch at my chest line. So I'll just replace that. So coming to my waistline, I'll be taking my waist measurement divided by 4. Then I'll mark what I have as my dart intake. My total dart intake is 2.5 inches. Then I'll just replace that there. So at my backline, right, I'll be taking the same measurement I took at my waistline. Then I'll just connect all these points together. So I'm not going to be adding my seam allowance to my pattern. I'm going to be adding it when I want to cut my fabric. So I'm just going to go ahead now and shade out all the points that I'll be cutting out so that it, we won't get confused, because I know the lines are a lot. So coming to my upper dart leg, I'm going to be measuring what I have. So towards my center, I have about 3¼ inches, while towards my side, I have 3½. So I'm just going to be reducing my side dart leg by 1/4 inch, and I will just connect it like that. So I'll just go ahead and shade that tiny point because I'll be cutting it out as well. So to cut out our back shape, I'm going to be folding my dart leg. So let me bring it closer to us. So I'll just pick one dart leg and fold it over to meet the other dart leg. So I'm just going to fold it like this, guys, the struggle. So after folding it, I'm going to pin it down. So from the waistline, I'm going to be coming down by 1/2 inch. This 1/2 inch is going to serve as allowance to join it to the bottom part of the dress. So I'm coming down by 1/2 inch. Then I'm just going to connect it. So I'll just go ahead and connect it to my backs. So after connecting it, I'll go ahead and open up my darts. Then I will just go ahead and cut this out. So I'll start by cutting from the backs, then I'll cut out my yoke. Please watch how I'm cutting it, watch closely because I know the lines are plenty, so it might be a little bit confusing. So I'm going to label that now. This is our center front, and I'll just keep that aside and I'll continue cutting. So guys, after cutting our pattern out, this is what we have. So I'm just placing it so that we can see clearly all the parts that we need. So I'm just going ahead to check right now if my backs is equal, and you can see that it is equal. So I'll just place this aside. I'll go ahead to draft our back pattern. So for my back, you can see I've already gone ahead to mark out some lines. I've slanted my shoulder. My neck width, I took it at 3.5 inches, the same with my front. So my chest line, my bust point, my waistline, and you can see I added half of an inch as allowance. So you can see that you will notice that I didn't add any zip allowance. This is because I would not be adding zip to this dress. So if you want to add zip to yours, you can go ahead and mark out your zip allowance. So on my chest line, I'm going to be dividing my bust measurement by 4, and I'll just mark it there at my chest line. And going over to my armhole, I'll take the midpoint. So the midpoint of my armhole is 4 inches. From that 4 inches point, I'm going to be coming out by half of an inch. Then I'll just draw a slanted line like that. Then I'll go ahead and use my curve to connect it to meet my bust measurement mark. So I'll just connect it to meet my bust measurement mark, right? So after we have succeeded to have our armhole curve, I'm going to go over to take my dart. So my dart, I'm taking it at 4.5 inches. So I marked it at my waistline, my bust point, and my chest line, 4.5 inches. So I'm just going to rule that out into a straight line. So at my waist, I'm going to be taking half inch on both sides, our normal dart intake for back. So half inch on both sides, and I'm just going to connect my darts. So for the upper part of this dart, this is just the normal precaution I take. Just for the back tightening, I'm going to take 1/4 of an inch on both sides of the dart. 1/4 of an inch. Then I'll just blend it into the dart leg like that. So we are done with our dart. We're going to be going over to our neck. So for our neck depth, I'm going to be taking 1 inch as my back neck depth. Then I'm just going to connect my neckline like that. So from there, from my neck depth, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch. Then I'll just make a mark. Make a mark at that 1 inch. So coming over to my chest line, I'm going to be subtracting 2 inches, and at my waistline I subtracted 1.5 inches, and I'm just going to be connecting these points together. This is because I want to reduce the back measurements, right? So that is where my loop or my eyelet is going to stay, because I'm reducing the back, right, so that it will be, you understand, tight. So from that 1 inch mark that we came down by, I'm going to connect it to meet my dart leg. So see the way I connected it. So you can give this any shape you want. You can give it a circular shape, a curved shape. So but I wanted this triangle shape. So our yoke is already formed. Our back yoke is already formed like this. So I'm going to go over now and take my waist measurements. My waist measurement divided by 4. Then I will replace my dart. Then I will just connect these points together. From my waistline, I'm going to be going up by 1 inch. This is a normal precaution I take whenever I didn't draft a pattern with side darts, because you know that our back is shorter than our front. Our back half length is shorter than our front. So I minus that 1 inch. Then I'm just going to blend it to my side my side seam like that, because I'm going to be cutting that off. So we're done with our back pattern. We're just going to go ahead and cut this out. Please watch closely how I'm cutting it. So after cutting, this is what we have for our back. We're done drafting our pattern. So in my next video, I'm going to be cutting and stitching it. So stay tuned for that video. So for my back pattern, I went ahead to label the up because the up and the down looks the same. To avoid mistake, I just went ahead to label it, and I also labeled the that. So guys, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. See you in my next video. Bye.